Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, because when you look at her, because you've got her stuff in here.
You should have a
16 to
little
present,
green light or
13 to
red light
21.
back there, so.
Oh,
We have it.
13 to
16.
16. That's in your packet.
Yeah, it is.
So, one of the things I always do is just put 10-year and whatever.
So she must have had a side job.
Overlapping, yeah.
Yeah, doing that and this.
Yep. For both
Got
of
it.
them, actually.
Well, and you go by Becca?
Becca.
Sure.
Yep.
Welcome, Becca, and
You need water?
I'm good, thank you.
thank you very much for your interest in the City of Morris City Manager position. We're delighted to have you here, and we've got a list of questions that we will go through and ask you, and just ask that you give a thoughtful response to each. I will also be timing, so if for some reason we're behind schedule, I'll just gently interject and let you know where we're at. So, first question, I'm going to be asking all the questions so that they have their opportunity to take notes. So, Rebecca, please tell us what interests you about the Morris City Manager position, and highlight key qualifications that make you the best person for this job.
So the first thing that really caught my eye in looking at your brochure of your city was that there was seemed like a lot of collaboration with different pieces of the community to get to a vision and get your goals met. And that's important. I think it's important, one, to have a vision for what you feel the community looks like, to have goals for it, to be able to put a plan together, and then have groups and organizations and community members wanting to get behind that plan and make that vision happen. So that's a big thing that caught my attention and really pulled me into the city of Morris. Qualities that I feel would help with that is I'm very much a collaborator. I love working with different groups. In Canby, I'm on the Rotary, I sit on the Chamber, sit on the Sanford board that they put together, a community group of people with the hospital and the college and different businesses in town, so we can collaborate there as well. I feel that I'm very approachable, and I have a high integrity standard, and I'm a very positive person, so I like to look at the positive things and not always at the negatives. So those are some things that I feel are my qualifications.
Thank you. The majority of Minnesota cities are statutory cities. However, the city of Morris is a charter city. Please share your knowledge of the difference between the two.
Yeah, so statutory cities are ones that the state of Minnesota says this is how the city has to act. Charter cities have their own laws and regulations. Canby is a charter city also, so different things versus statutory versus charter. It's like in Canby's charter, we had someone who resigned that just got elected from the council in February. If we were a statutory city, we would have had to have a special election to fill that position. Our charter states that we can fill it until the next general election. So differences there. There's a little bit of difference depending on your charter. Like with our charter in Canby, selling property, buying property is a little bit different than what the statutory cities have to follow. So differences like that.
Oh, interesting. Please describe your management style and how that facilitates teamwork among the council, staff, and contracted employees.
Yeah, so I would say that I'm more of a democratic leader. I like to get input if time allows from the people who it's going to affect, whether it be my staff, whether it be different businesses in town. Obviously, sometimes you have to make a decision on a whim and you can't get those, but I do like to have the input. I like to get different ideas from those that it's going to affect. An example would be that in Canby, we have a small staff of 10 people. When I started, I would just meet with department heads, after council, let them know what's going on, and have them kind of facilitate to their staff. Some of the staff was a little jilted. They wanted to be in on some of those conversations just because instead of seeing it in the paper the next week, they wanted to know what was going on. So we started just having weekly meetings to talk really about council, but then it started getting into, okay, well, what are our big projects coming up, or what are little projects that we need to get done? And if office staff had questions for public works staff, and we could all kind of sit down and collaborate, which has boosted our morale quite a bit. Our staff works very much as a team. We talk like we are a team. We are team members, we're team players. We make sure that we can facilitate the projects and things that need to be done. And listening to what they needed and putting some stuff in place has really helped with that.
Great.
You mentioned department heads that you met with at your previous employment. Were there a number of people underneath the department heads, or were the department heads?
So I have a public works director who has 4 under him. So there's 5 in the public works department, 3 in the police department. So I would meet with the police chief. And the police officers I met with here and there. They didn't come to our meetings because usually they work
Sure.
nights and weren't
All right, thank you.
involved. But yeah.
Thank you.
Becca, what experience do you have working with union employees and collective bargaining agreements?
So Canby has 3 different unions. They have a supervisor's union, which has a public works director and the police chief. They have a union with the rest of the employees, so the public works department, and then the 2 office staff, and then the police officers union. So 3 different unions. We've done 2 different bargaining union contracts. 3 if you count. We just got a new police chief, so we bargained that into, instead of a hourly position, into a salary. So we had to discuss the union contract a little bit and bargain some things in there. So I've been involved in 2 different union contracts with 3 different unions, working through all of the fun cost of living increases and healthcare. Healthcare keeps rising, so we're always bargaining with some of that, and with holidays changing. So yeah, just those are the unions I've been a part of.
Great. Describe how you believe the relationship between the city manager and the council should function.
I think it's important to have a lot of communication between the city council and the city manager. It's important for council to know what is going on in the city, all of the different facets of what's going on. It's important for them to communicate with the manager, kind of the things they're hearing out on the street, whether it be some complaints or different things. I think it's definitely important to have the council come to the manager instead of different employees, because then that can get kind of messy. But that communication piece is definitely something that needs to happen in order for the city manager, city council, and the city as a whole to function.
Please describe your involvement in budgeting, finance, and short and long range planning.
So me and her title is in finance director, but the gal who does a lot of that stuff in Canby, we sit down once a year, well, more than that, but to really go over line item budgets. We have 2 CPAs that sit on my council, so last year we invited both of them to sit in on the budget process, going line by line. Before we do that, we get department heads to give us what are their wants, what do they need for the next year. We have been working, Canby doesn't have implemented a capital improvement plan, so we've been working the last few years to get, at least a 5-year capital improvement budget set up on what we need. So that's been a little bit of a challenge, working with some of the department heads on what they have and what they need, and then, costs continue to grow as inflation has been skyrocketing the last few years. So yeah, we get the department heads involved, sit down, go line item by line item, bring the budget, preliminary budget to council. We sit, usually a couple meetings going over that and working on what we can dwindle down for our final budget. And then I also work with Ellers, as our financial advisors, and we've done a utility rate study, and we've done a financial management plan that we utilize often in making these decisions also.
Becca, what have you previously done to educate new members about the finances and keep members apprised of changes to the budget?
Yeah, so when new members come on council, I usually have a sit down with them to go over not only budget, but also projects that we're working on, projects that are gonna be coming up, that they're gonna have to make decisions on, and then answer any questions that they might have. Changes in the budget, so any changes that we make to the budget, if we are going to go over our budget for the department, then we always bring that stuff to council to have them make that decision to, hey, we're gonna be over, can we still purchase this item, and this is why we feel that it's necessary and needed at this time and can't wait. But all of the overages on budget are done at council level.
It is important for the city manager to be organized. What do you do to keep yourself organized on various projects and ensure that you are meeting deadlines?
Yeah, so I have a whiteboard in my office that has all the different projects that we're working on, future things that need to be done, and things that we should probably look at in the future. Always have a list. I'm very much a list person, have a lot of Post-its around. This job, you get interrupted a lot. A lot of things are, you start working on one thing in the morning, and by 10 o'clock you have somebody else coming in with something that needs to be taken care of immediately, and you just have to make sure that your calendar, you know your deadlines on things so you can get those done. But definitely being able to be flexible and get into those other issues that take precedence sometimes right away. But always have that calendar deadline out. And like I said, I use a lot of Post-it notes, and I have a whiteboard that has all my projects that I'm working on.
So you are familiar with the different deadlines if you've been down and can be doing things, to knowing the different things that need to be done by certain dates throughout the year as far as required by the state for our
Yep.
prelim budgets and stuff?
Yep, so I always print out, the league has a calendar of events that, you know, and important dates, I think is what it's called. And definitely we always have that around so we can make sure we're doing things. But a lot of the ones that I'm in charge of, you know, I make sure my staff knows the things they are. But they all fall on the same dates, so I've been working in public government for local government for eight and a half years. So some of those dates kind of stick, and you know I have to get it done by this. We have to have, you know, our budget to the county by September 30th, and we have to, you know, all of those deadlines. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Describe a time when you made a mistake at work. How did you deal with this situation, and what was the outcome?
Mistake that I made. I would say that a mistake that was made. Oh goodness, I know I've made many, so I'm just trying to think of one. We all make those little oopses. I would say probably not getting things out to council, like just the other meeting. Something came in for council from the county on Friday after packets went out. I was heading out for the day, so I had said, well, I'll put it on the agenda. You know, I sent the stuff to the council and said we need to add this to the agenda on the additions, and then I totally didn't write it down on my paper. So council came and went, and then I had a council member send me a message, me and the mayor one, and said this wasn't approved at council. I'm like, oh, oops. Like, yeah, and of course the mayor was very, very polite about it. She's like, we all knew about it. Any one of us could have added it. I'm like, yeah, I know. But so I made sure with the county that it was okay to get it 2 weeks later when we had our meeting, and we approved the resolution that they needed and move forward with it. And I've tried to be way more diligent on making my notes if things needed to be added to the agenda. Although I try really hard to get everything into the agenda so we don't have to add stuff at last minute, so council doesn't feel like they have to make those quick decisions on things that they just got. So
In the overall scheme of things, you will recover, right? I mean, there aren't too many things where you can't correct. Becca, how will you work with the EDA and help the community to grow and prosper?
yeah, so it's important to, our EDA is very, in Canby doesn't work a whole ton, but I have been a part of different projects getting businesses into town. Most recently getting runnings to build a new building into Canby. It's important to work with the EDA into finding spaces, finding where they can go, what we need as a community, what kind of businesses we want in our community, and then you know, if there's any financial way we can incentivize people to come into the community and build or expand. And having working all together helps that, and knowing just kind of different things that are out there that you can do. Like with runnings, when they came into Canby, they came to the mayor and I and said, we want to build, you know, we want to move from your downtown, but we want to expand. Where can you put us? And so we had to find locations with no land available that we owned, and said, here are some options for you. What can, you know, where do you want to be? And then we took it from there and negotiated with a farmer to purchase some land for an industrial park, and now we have a new business expanding in town. We will then have three old buildings that we need to figure out what to do. So we've been, I've been working, like I said, our EDA isn't very active, but I've been working a lot with one of our financial advisors on what can we do with these? How can we recruit businesses to come in there, and what do we need? And so we've been talking to local businesses who kind of want to expand into different things and are looking for a place to go, and how they can get funds or help because the buildings need some repair. So, yeah.
What is your experience researching, applying for, and managing grants?
Yeah, so I'll start with one of the first grants that I ever worked with was the Safe Routes to School grant when I first interned in Clarkfield. So I helped write and work with that grant along with the RDC that's down in Appleton, and then implemented that when I was working with them part-time. In Canby, we have worked with the RDC also to write and implement a small cities grant. So that is going on now. It'll end September 30th. So we've done probably about 10 houses for 4 or 5 businesses with that one. I've been very big with that one, trying to get our downtown businesses to do it, because we had quite a bit that dropped out. So took an afternoon one day and walked to all the businesses on trying to see what led them to dropping out of this, and how can we get them back in the program, and what we could do to facilitate them moving forward in that grant. And then I also, when I first came to Canby, I had quite a bit of people. The airport manager would complain a lot about the dust and the rocks on the runway, and then the hospital administrator always talked to me about how bumpy the ride was for patients out to the airport, because we were on a gravel road. So trying to figure out, obviously things cost money, so we can't do it because it costs money. So we'll try and figure something out. So looking for grants for that, I ended up finding a local road improvement grant, talked to our city engineer and said, hey, I feel like this qualifies for the city. What are your thoughts? He thought it did too. We ended up getting a $600,000 grant to pave our airport road, which has been amazing for the hospital and my airport manager. So those are 3 of the big ones that they've worked with.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
Kudos to you. That's a lot of money.
that was a lot of money. We were very excited
Yeah.
about that one.
You mentioned a city, an engineer. Does the city actually employ an engineer, or is it a firm?
No, we contract with Bolton and May.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, thank you. That's
Yeah.
what
We have one that's just
I
with us, so that's the way.
absolutely,
Yep.
sure, okay.
Describe your current local government network, or the steps you would take to develop a network of local government professionals that you can share ideas and get advice from.
Yeah, so I meet once a quarter with administrators from the southwest area, so all the way from Fairmont up to, I think Appleton is the farthest someone has come from for that, and then all the way over to Laverne, Pipestone area. We meet once a quarter to share ideas, talk about different things going on, different things that have happened. But these are the people, when things have gone sideways at different points, that I will reach out to on a daily, weekly basis if need be. So I make a core group that, the gentleman from Wyndham, the gal from Madison, the gal from Granite Falls, those are my main go-to. I've met quite a bit of people going to the MCMA conferences that I've grown to work with and admire, and hear stories from them and see what they're doing. So they're the local government ones, the ones that are in my position that I work with. I also have reached out to the county administrator before, because I knew she had, the Yellow Medicine County Administrator, she is from local government, city government before county. So I have reached out to her in the past. Definitely talk to those main first. And then I also, work with people with like the RDC, talk to them if it's non-city type of stuff, I have reached out when I've needed advice. I've talked to even our school superintendent. He's in quite a bit of different meetings with me on different things, so I'll reach out to him or our hospital administrator on different things. So try and utilize all of them too.
No, that's great. Great. Describe your experience working with other units of government to develop service partnerships.
Yeah, so I've worked with quite a bit of different units some that we've partnered with to do things is the watershed district. So Canby is in a floodplain. We worked with FEMA quite a bit to update our maps. It just got updated just a few years ago. But with that, we have 4 dams around Canby, so I've worked with the watershed district in order to, we have a dam emergency plan in place in case any of those dams breach and we have an issue. So I've worked with them, worked with the county a lot, especially when COVID came around. The emergency manager at the county gave us a lot of information. Work with the RDC, sit on the Prairie 5 board to try and it helps. That board is there to try and get businesses and tourists into our area, and they've expanded in the last few years trying to make it like more of a bringing people in to live into our area too. So sit on that board, work with the MPCA quite a bit with our demo site, especially now with all the PFAS mandates that are coming through. We've definitely had to work very close together to try and figure out, one, how to close our demo site because we're at full capacity, and then how to maintain it with all these new regulations that are coming down. Worked with, like I said, I worked with the school, worked with Minnesota West. We're working right now on a project for solar arrays. They're putting a solar array on their property right now, so working on the planning commission side of it to get them to put this solar array onto their campus. Yeah.
Becca, please share how you would become involved in the Morris community.
Well, I would really like to get involved if you have any service organizations. Like I said, I'm part of Rotary. I love being in Rotary. I love getting to not only know the people in Rotary, but the work that we do. A few years ago, they nudged me into the president role, which had me get a whole new look at the organization and just sitting down and going through all of the different things that we give our monies to and help our monies to, and then being a part of pushing out different projects and going and like putting out, we did dispensers when COVID was going on, so the parks had hand sanitizer, and just being a part of that is really important and really fun for me. I love being a part of the chamber, getting out there. Our chamber does a lot of our community events, so being a part of the community events, helping put on the community events, volunteering at the community events, those are big things that I've done that I would like to continue to do in my next position.
You mentioned community events. There, could you give a couple examples of maybe
Yeah,
that?
so Hack Days is in Canby. We have that in a couple weeks. Not this weekend, next weekend, if you want to come out. So we have usually a tent set up for the chamber, so I'll usually sit at the tent for a while, or when Rotary did food, then I would help with the food. But the parade this year, I've been tasked with helping to come up with ideas since they stopped doing the bounce houses. So what else can they do there? So they have Hat Days. With that, we have an air show that weekend, which is going to have it's called Big Air. It's people who ride ATVs and fly over things. It's really cool. So that's out at our air show Father's Day. So super fun. So out there helping with our airport manager on anything he needs me to do. We have a holiday event in December, and then so it's a holiday light show parade and a shopping for kids and different things, and then we have our car show weekend.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
It's all fun stuff.
Oh yeah.
Describe a situation that you feel demonstrates your integrity and ethical standards.
Okay, so, last year, we had a little debacle with our police department. Our police chief was not very happy that I put him on a performance plan. Honestly, it was something that I did in order to help our communication. I felt that having something down where we could sit and talk once a week would help with our relationship. He didn't take it that way. He put in his resignation and then came to council very fired up with quite a bit of people behind him, which led to a lot of really misinformation on social media that spread quite a bit. And I really felt, obviously what he was doing wasn't right. Him going around sharing false information wasn't right. And a lot of it, I couldn't share any information because it was all personnel information and I couldn't share information like that. So I had to sit there and I had to hold my head high and just not give in to all of the temptation of wanting to share the correct information. But knowing that I knew what was going on, the council knew what was going on, everybody who that needed to know had the right information. And I got told by quite a bit of people, even the gal who owns the newspaper, her daughter was a senior at one of these council meetings because they have to come for school, and she said she couldn't believe how I could just sit there and just be as positive about things and just kind of let it roll, that, you know, I'm not going to come back at you with even the right information, because technically that information is not public. So I felt I held quite a bit of integrity there.
Great example. What is your experience managing staff? And please share a situation where you had to address employee performance and how you went about it and what the outcome was.
Well, that's
That's
kind of this. So it, like I said, it started with communication, talking to other administrators on what would you do? Like, this is where we're at, this is what I've tried, what would you do? And so the next step was that performance plan. The outcome was just what happened. Not very good, but it had I known what I know now, I would have done things a little different. I probably would have addressed the situation earlier than I had. I would have probably done some verbal reprimands in there, along with the performance plan. I still think the outcome probably would have been the same, but at least I would have felt like I had done it a little better. I tried, not that I tried to skirt around the issue, but I tried to keep the peace, where sometimes I learned for myself as a leader, I sometimes need to really have those hard conversations earlier than later. I have, besides that one, you have your little bits and spouts that, I have, sometimes I have to be the bad guy on, you have to get this done now with the Public Works Department, and push them more, but when they finally get pushed and get the project done and see how great it turns out, then they even feel that sense of accomplishment too. So
along those lines, Rebecca, how often do you typically meet with your department heads and so forth?
yeah, so we meet I would say with the department heads, like, my public works director probably comes and talks to me at least 3 times a week. Like, I sat and talked to him, today's only Tuesday, he was in my office yesterday already, going over some things, and he told me that he'll see me later today when, so we have a really good working relationship. I like to meet with them, like our public works director, he is a working supervisor. So there are times he's really busy. I like to at least sit down with my department heads once a week.
Okay,
So like with my new police chief that started, that he knows the expectation is once a week we'll have a seat. We'll sit down and talk about just what's going on, what I need from him, what he needs from me, or maybe just kind of how it's going. And then we meet with all staff that's working that day after council. So the day after council, we sit down and go over what council happened, and then kind of we'll sit down this week and talk about the different projects that they're working on and seeing how they're going. Mm-hmm.
thank you. Yeah, it's good to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
You mentioned that dealing with staff, that you would confront problems earlier on than later on. And would that be, I'll just take an example as your public works, you see things around the town that you would like to see maybe aren't done or would like to see improved, that would be something that you would have a conversation with your department head about?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. They probably get sick of hearing. Every time I go on, I'm like, hey, what about this? Or we need to do this. Or like, we're working on our softball fields right now. So they're digging in the water line today. We just put in new concrete around the bathrooms and the dugouts. We got a new fence last year because we had a windstorm. But the concrete got done, and I went down, and yay, it's so nice. And I'm like, you have to come up here and do the fill before the concrete gets wrecked. So they're all really good at doing things, but they're probably sick of me telling them, hey, I saw this. Can you do this now? But yeah.
Along the lines, that's part of it, so.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
When we have our hard conversations and we have some director that you're dealing with to deal with it, get it done, you can move forward and put that behind you and we keep moving on, or are you one that's got that sitting back there with you?
You know, I don't. I definitely, let's wipe the slate clean and move forward. My old police chief who had just left, he had a lot of not nice things to say about me before he started, because of a water line. He wanted a water line put in, and the council said, no, we're not paying for it. If you want to, you can, and with a project, and he was not happy. And when I sat him down the first day, I'm like, okay, we're all good. Everything is fine. Let's just have some open communication, and none of that will stay. So definitely, things happen. My public works director was in yesterday, and I'm like, what about this tree? You told me this one needs to come down too, and now you're telling me no. And he's like, I'm in a mood. I'm not doing this. And I'm like, okay, well, then what we do for one, we do for the other, and we have to look at some things. And he's like, I'm just having a day. Yeah, I get it. Everybody has a day.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Please share a time when you had to deal with a disgruntled resident. Hopefully you've had one of those, right? And what you did to resolve the situation.
Yeah, okay. So one that I remember very clearly, we are, like I said, a charter city. So we had someone approach me that wanted to buy a piece of land that was down by the creek that the city owned. The city really was just mowing it and was doing nothing. So our city charter says we can just sell it via an ordinance. But instead I took it to the planning commission just to make sure I wasn't aware of anything that was supposed to be there. Nope, they said it was fine. sell. Council had a closed meeting just to get a price together, and then they had their first reading of the ordinance. So after that hit the paper, I had the neighbor very angry coming up, and you're selling this property, and how can I stop this? And I don't want anybody to buy it. I want it, I was told it was a park, and it was supposed to stay a park, even though there's nothing there. And so, I told her I'd look into what it should have been, or if there was anything about that. Called the city attorney, told her she could come to the council meeting because they were making the final adoption that night, to state her case there. She was very upset. I didn't find anything. City attorney said there was nothing that said that it had to be a park. So that night the council did approve to move forward with selling it. She was, like I said, she was very angry about it. I get her frustration. We sat down, had a conversation about that. Put a policy in place where, okay, if we're gonna sell land, let's just let the adjacent owners know that, hey, this is coming up, so we don't have any issues where they're surprised, or they could, because it was, if she wanted to, she could have probably thrown in a bid too. So just giving them the opportunity. So just putting something else in place. So she wasn't, at the time, she was still very angry that we did this without, even though we followed steps we should have. Putting something in place helped that, and then the person who purchased it and then built a garage has maintained it very well, so I don't think she's disgruntled anymore.
Becca, we're getting close to the end here. Why should the Morris City Council select you as their next city manager?
Yeah, I think that you guys should select me as your manager because I feel I have a lot of qualifications. I feel that I'm resilient. I have a lot of integrity. I'm very trustworthy. I'm very approachable. I've had times where I have people come in my office and show me calendars of family just because he feels that we're, I give him some time when he comes in to talk about his taxes. I'm empathetic to those that are coming in and some of our stuff is utility billing, and people are, sometimes struggle. And so I have empathy, and I try and find ways to help work through some of those issues that are being had. I've been in city government for 8.5 years, so I've worked with a lot of different entities, have a lot of different partners. Definitely involved with talking to our legislators and hearing what's going on up there and trying to help them push through things that we need out in rural Minnesota. I feel that I have quite a bit of knowledge to bring forward with different things that I've been through and been with. Like I stated, I helped get that grant, worked on our industrial park. I love how you guys have so many outdoor facilities for people to do. It's been a big push of mine in Canby to get some of that stuff done. I went out and got donations for our tennis and basketball court, which ended up into a pickleball court too. And everyone was very like, it's a lot of money for, nobody plays on it. Well, nobody plays on it because it's broken. So we now have a pickleball team or group that comes up I think it's Tuesdays, that go up there and are utilizing it. And people playing tennis now on there, working with redoing our trail. Our trail does not look as extensive as yours. I'm super excited to see that, but yeah, I've been in on the hiring process of different positions. I worked with ordinance changes, street projects, small cities grants. We have a historical theater in Canby that the city owns, so I worked closely with the Historical Society on grants to help put that back to original. I've worked, like I said, on upgrading our ball fields. We're working on that. We just finished a cemetery project in Canby that has been going on since 2014, to get all the graves into a book and put roll markers out and a map. So a lot of different projects that I've been involved in that I could bring the knowledge that I've obtained from those back here. So.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
So the most difficult question of all is, do you have any questions for the council here?
I have a couple. So what are you guys looking for? Like, what is your biggest want in the next city manager that you have here?
Put it on one area. I think for me, you know, we're looking for a city manager that's gonna be engaging with the community. We've done a lot of good things in our community, but I think there's room for improvement when it comes to communication and involvement with the local business community in particular. And, you know, we do have, like I shared with you at the industrial park, we're tapped out, you know, but I think we're looking for someone that is forward thinking. If we have a prospective business that wants to come to town right now, we don't have a lot of room or any place to put them. So I guess business development for me and collaboration would be a couple of things that I'm looking for.
I would add experience would be a huge factor for me, somebody that knows what they're getting into, the deadlines, working with all the things in the deadlines that you need to do. Knowledge, to know the things that are involved with your job, to be able to work with your staff, in-house and department heads, a good listener for the council and the citizens of our community, that we can have a good ear to hear their problems, no matter how small they might be. To them, it's a huge problem, you know. So I guess just to having our next city manager that's able to work with us and with our citizens and to fit into our community.
Yeah, I'm looking for a strong leader to lead the staff, to bring to the city. I think it's important that your city looks good. I mean, I think that's a big focus for me for your Parks Division. People want to come to your city. They want to see it looking in good shape. They want to see things like that. I think that working with the community and maybe even working on projects to, you know, fix up the inner parts of the city as we grow older, we grow out, and the inside kind of dies down a little bit. So I think bringing people, I think beautifying the city and that brings people in, and we got plenty of jobs for people in this community, plenty of jobs, and so I think those are the really important things for me. So,
And I'll echo basically everything that these other gentlemen have stated. I think the only addition that I would like to emphasize would be a high level of communication, right? Like, not only between the council and the city manager, but the city manager and public, right? So making sure that everyone is abreast of whatever information they need to have, are allowed to have, like you mentioned earlier, right? And making sure that everyone can effectively function.
On the tour, you mentioned a landfill. So that's not a city landfill though, correct?
Oh, what?
A landfill?
no, it's contract.
It's con-
Okay.
That's all contract.
Okay.
That's private. All our disposal, that's private. It's
Okay.
contracted. Yeah.
But the
Okay,
landfill
good.
actually does
So you don't
belong
have to worry
to the
about it.
county.
Right.
It's a county land.
It's a county landfill, but it's a private garbage
Okay,
that's contracted with the city and the county.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was gonna ask, how have you guys handled some of this PFAS stuff? But if it's not yours, then you don't have to worry about it.
Mhm.
Okay. What do you see as the big projects in the next 5 years?
Well, we've dealt with this East 7th Street project for the last several years. And we have a situation where there was a development that was done, and the parcel was developed, and they were on their own city water and sewer. They weren't provided with city water and sewer at that time. Well, now you fast forward 20 years, and those wells and septic tanks are failing. And the homeowners, in some cases, are locked. They can't expand and replace their current septic systems because when the properties were plotted, there's not room to, because according to MPCA standards, you gotta be able to put it on virgin soil, and in some cases, they don't have room to put another well or another septic in there. So, when you look at sustainability of that property, of those homeowners out there, they're gonna be faced with a couple of choices. Number one, they either move if they don't want to incur that expenses, or they're gonna have to put in a holding tank and have it pumped every month, which is gonna be a burden for them. And so we gotta figure out a way to get water and sewer to them people, and we also have two businesses out on that street also. Joe Riley and John Riley Construction, and they're one of our larger employers in town, so, and then we have daycares along that road, so it affects a lot of different things. You got daycare, you got businesses, and then you got homeowners. So that, I see that as gonna be one of our big projects over the next 5 years. We're gonna have to do something, because the street's in bad repair, and we need to address that. And we just recently voted down to, we had a grant we could have used to just put a Band-Aid on it, if you will, but it didn't make sense to do it and uproot everything without bringing utilities to that area. So that's gonna be a big challenge for us.
The East 7th Street project is one of the top on my list also. We've actually delayed it a year to just doing the street project, but to hopefully research and doing something with the water and sewer for, I believe it's 112 potential residents that expand out in farther, out beyond. So we pushed it back, and we need to find some answers on that before we do the street project next year. So that's something that we need to deal with as soon as we get up and running with our new city manager. Industrial Park, which Kevin has touched on, is full. We need to find spaces so we have a place if a business comes in, is looking to join us, instead of waiting to hear somebody wants to come to Morris. Well, now we should start looking. We need to find the space. We're working and we're doing some research right now on some grants for solar on our water treatment facility and our sewage facility out on the edge of town. So we're looking at doing some joint grant, but I think we can get about 40% picked up from federal or state grants. So that's something we're working on right now. And we keep hearing whispers, and there's community involvement on a potential swimming pool. We've had just a sand pool out in our park, out by the splash park, but we've had a drowning or two out there and it got filled back in. So it's just a potential. There's groups in town that have pursued looking at that, and I guess maybe it's time again for us to do some research and to see what kind of community interest we can find on that and to do something with that.
Right, I think, and just to touch with what Jeff said, with the pool, and that's something that has to go to a vote to the community. That can't be done just through the council. Can't appropriate that kind of money just doing that. So it's gone there a couple times and failed. But I think it's still, I think that's part of one of my ideas too for everything is to bring the city up to looking good. That it isn't now, but keep it there, and also work on our housing situations. You know, we have tons of jobs available, and there's a lot of jobs here that people drive a distance to come to. And if we had the homes available in town here, we could get them here. There's a lot of people that don't take jobs here because they can't find a house, they can't find housing. affordable or whatever the case may be.
Daycare's another part of that too.
The daycare is a part of that too, and I think a pool is part of the community. Just now, going around the summer, early in the morning, I see the pickleball courts. I mean, 7 o'clock, there's people on there just going at it. So, you know, I think there's a lot of involvement there. I think those are, you know, the street projects are important to keep up with them so that we don't fall behind. But finding a way to just build up that housing part of our community will bring a lot more people in, so.
You know, just to segue onto that, we have a lot of blighted properties in Morris. And I don't know if you've had any experiences dealing with that in Canby, but we've kicked that can down the road a long time. I mean, and I think to Brian's point, we have some properties that are quite honestly, they're neglected. And if the city has to step in and get involved to get rid of those, I would support it, because the people aren't obviously gonna do nothing with it. You know, the grass is a foot tall, the building's ready to fall down. So we need to address that, I think, on the short term too, when you get those properties cleaned up, and then maybe somebody will wanna build a new house there.
And we have had Riverview, the big dairy setup, come in and buy a dilapidated or property that was basically beyond repair, level it, and build new housing, and they retain ownership, but they also include that as part of a package, a pay package to an employee or a family that works for them. So there's, I would guess, 8, 10 houses that have been built and done, at least in town, very nice looking houses that an employer has done. So I'd love to work with some of the other businesses, talking with maybe Westmore, Superior, or defining if we have some of that property for some options for the city to help and work with them to do that upgrade, to get rid of an eyesore and to have a nice looking house that would be on our tax base.
Right.
Absolutely.
So do you guys have a building inspector? Do you have building code here?
We're in the process of losing our building inspector. He's gonna be retiring within the year probably, so we're,
Okay.
We
That-
share one now with Benson, and I believe there's another small community that he's working with.
Ortonville, I think.
It's Ortonville or Appleton or somewhere in there, but yes, looking to find a replacement for him. He's very highly skilled and does a lot of the commercial, the hospitals, the bigger projects, which it sounds like he may be interested in staying on for the big, but he would like to retire or find a replacement for the lower end, the regular construction things that he's doing.
So with disbanding your police department, who has taken over the ordinance issues, ordinance violations? The city,
The city manager, city pretty much
Okay,
has taken the pretty much the lead on the notices with different things.
okay. So they go out and find them, or
Public
Well-
do
Works
they
or
just
city
go?
manager.
Okay,
it's kind of up to Sheriff Dingman too, on which of those ordinances he's gonna police. You know, cause because we contracted with the county, our involvement at the city level is pretty much done. You know, it's up to Jason, really how he runs those things.
great.
Like if somebody has let's say a long yard or something like that, or somebody's mowing their grass and throwing the clippings out in the street, those kinds of things are up to the sheriff, how he wants to police that.
And is he doing any of that? And I only asked just because when we lost all of our officers and talked to the county about it, they're like, even if you contract with us, we are not doing any ordinance violations.
They aren't obligated to do that, as you know.
Yeah,
So far, at least I'm not hearing anything from the public, and that to me says a lot. Because if there were people that had issues, they'd be calling one of us. And so far, I think it's been working okay.
okay.
Our public works and our city manager has dealt with the cars, the vehicles, the lawns, the snow shoveling, the sidewalks, the smaller
Yeah.
issues of that type.
I think so far, so good.
Okay. So you mentioned daycare. Daycare is an issue here too. Housing, daycare, and broadband are a lot of issues. It seems like a lot of.
With the addition, when we drove past it, with that addition of we're calling them pods, on the old elementary school, that will open, I think it's 40 or 50 spots for daycare. Additionally, on the other side of town, there is a care facility that they are expanding as well, which by the end of the year, I think they're talking 100 additional between those two facilities. So that's a great opportunity, but like Councilmember Salvi mentioned, now we need housing to help bring in
Yeah, that county
Additional
project
families.
that the county actually is doing those daycare pods. It's a big deal. The whole state's looking at that project, really, because the county bought the land, they're developing building the pods. So it's gonna be interesting, because they're already sold, they're already rented, they're leased,
Wow.
and so they're done. I mean, we're excited that that's gonna be a big help.
That's a sixplex with, I believe, up to 15 in each unit that the county is doing, and we contributed some with water, sewer, some of the things there to helping to get it done. And the other one is in-house with the local nursing home that's remodeling and doing and expanding the daycare there also, so. Seems like a different mix with the nursing home with their seniors and the kids, but I think it's a nice mix to have some of the youth and the young and around for the seniors to look out and see some of the activities, so.
Oh, yeah, I heard that that's been a big, good push in different places, that they've seen a lot of, happier residents that are with the young kids there.
Perfect timing, Becca.
If you're done,
Right.
if you weren't done, you are.
Well, I appreciate you guys, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you
Yes.
for coming.
Thanks for
Thank you for
spending
your time.
part of your day with us.
Yeah, that covers it.
Hopefully you're not too rough on the other two groups that get to deal with you. Thank you so much.
I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're gonna be doing lunch right next
Thank you
door.
very much, Becca.
And I think we're on a little bit of a staggered time, but there should be some